The reluctant student and the soul. The morning after the catastrophic attack, Tijan was trapped in the cold logic of denial. He sat in a small, windowless storage room behind Priestess Lilas's community center, now his unlikely spiritual training area. The air was thick with the potent scent of smoldering sage and herbs, which Tijan classified as complex organic combustion, still treating the deep spiritual burn on his forearm with antiseptic, striving for a detached, scientific response. The residual energy from the attack suggests a localized displacement field, possibly low-level radiation, Tijan theorized, his voice tight with desperation to categorize the unknown. I need data. I need to measure the output before I can begin to mitigate it. Priestess Lilas, preparing a ceremonial mixture in an earthenware bowl, finally looked at him. Her gaze was ancient and patient. You are asking the sea why it has waves, little John. The mechanism is spirit. Your displacement field is the raw, hostile power of a corrupted entity. Your only data is your echo. She then delivered the crucial first lesson, the fundamental spiritual cosmology that defined their conflict. Every living person possesses two distinct souls. The small good angel. This is the personal, conscience-driven soul. It is the repository of self, memory, moral judgment, and, most crucially, free will. It is the uniquely individuated consciousness. The great good angel. This is the raw life force. It is the breath, the pure animating energy that connects all life to the ancestral collective and the very essence of the earth's spirits. It is the power source, but not the pilot. Lilas's voice dropped to a low, chilling register as she explained the most heinous spiritual crime, the creation of the soulless zombie. It occurs when a dark priest manages to isolate, capture, and cage the small good angel. The body remains animated only by the vacant, controlled life force, the great good angel, leaving behind a human being utterly devoid of self, conscience, or free will. When you saw Marie, Lilas explained, you weren't looking at a sick woman. You were looking at an empty vessel being maintained by her great good angel, awaiting the remote commands of the dark priest. The Corruptor seeks to harvest the small good angel in masses. He seeks to replace the complexity of individual free will with absolute, enforced order. Mapping the echo. Spiritual frequencies. Lilas immediately moved past theory into the relentless practical application of Tijan's unique ability. She blindfolded him, making him rely solely on his echo, which she defined as an exceptional capacity to read the subtle spiritual signature, the precise frequency or harmonic chord, emitted by every spiritual object and entity. The training began with calibration. He had to learn to differentiate the signals. The pristine harmonic. He held a clear glass of water, drawn from a local, consecrated well. Tijan's echo registered a pure, high-frequency, perfectly balanced tone. A perfect harmonic signature, vibrating with natural energy. The muted signature. Lilas introduced a small, wooden doll, recently retrieved from a corrupted ceremony. Tijan's echo registered a smooth, slightly warm tone overlaid with a chilling thinness, a distinct gap in the frequency range. That thinness, Lilas emphasized, is the sound of the caged soul. The absence of the small good angel. The thinness wasn't a defect, it was a deliberate, catastrophic spiritual erasure. Lilas then intensified the exercise, focusing on the threat. The greatest challenge is the dissonant chord, she instructed. The shape-shifting spirit, and all agents of the dark priest, broadcast a chaotic, aggressive, high-frequency static. You must isolate and analyze that dissonance, find the pattern in the chaos. Tijan, channeling his inner systems analyst, began mentally classifying the chaos. Harmonic signature stable, predictable code muted signature, missing data fields, and dissonant chord intentional, hostile corruption, spiritual malware. He was no longer a mystic, he was a spiritual signal analyst, capable of debugging the network. The first spiritual gate and data overload. Lilas prepared for the first major test, opening a temporary spiritual gate. She drew a sprawling, complex spiritual signature on the ground using white powder and chalk, representing the CROSSROADS spirit, the venerable gatekeeper. She explained that the spirit world is a reality slightly offset from ours, and the signatures are the precise access codes. You must walk the lines and chant the honorific, pouring your concentrated echo, your focused spiritual awareness, into the lines, she instructed. It demands absolute precision and a stable frequency. Any error, and the gate collapses violently, and you will be caught in the turbulent wave. Tijan approached the task with the rigid focus of a physicist executing a complex experiment. He didn't pray, he calculated the trajectory. He mentally translated the ritual lines into a geometric formula, visualizing the entire spiritual signature as a massive electrical circuit requiring precise voltage input. He then poured the mental image of a stable, complex hydraulic pressure formula into the physical act of tracing the ritual lines. When his concentration peaked, the room instantly dissolved. He was momentarily suspended in a swirling, overwhelming vortex of energy and pure information. He saw not mystical visions, but raw, spiritual data in motion. His engineer's mind immediately translated the chaos into objective terms. He saw massive, stable energy fields, sharp vector displacements indicating the movement of spiritual entities, and complex wave interference patterns that represented the collision of different realms. It was a terrifying, beautiful moment of data overload, a spiritual blueprint of reality laid bare. He saw the very code of the universe. Lilas instantly pulled him back, gripping his arms firmly. He staggered, breathing heavily, his mind reeling from the torrent of pure data. Only seconds had passed in the mortal world, but he had experienced minutes of intense spiritual immersion. You did not just open a door, Little John, she said, her voice strained but proud. You did not just open a door, you mapped the entire junction. You are not a spiritual channeler, you are a spiritual surveyor, capable of analyzing the network itself. This is why you were chosen. The Corruptor's malware. The training was violently interrupted by the mortal world. A frantic young woman burst into the center, reporting devastating news. A small, local garden, a community space that honored the earth spirits for fertility, had been systematically ruined overnight. The destruction was surgical. The plants were desiccated, the soil inert, but the physical structures were untouched. The damage was purely spiritual, a draining of the great good angel energy from the land. Tijan, his echo still amplified from the gate exercise, felt the signature of the young woman. Her fear was clear, but overlaid with a faint, repeating, metallic grating noise, the exact frequency of the corrupted signature he had heard at Marie's door. The dissonant chord. Lilas's face hardened with grim realization. The Corruptor is not using raw magic, Little John. He is engaging in systematic spiritual warfare, a deliberate campaign of sabotage. Tijan quickly made the final, terrifying connection. The Dark Priest was intentionally polluting the spiritual landscape by creating pockets of dissonant echoes, spiritual, malware, across the city. This corruption didn't just hurt people, it destabilized the boundary between the worlds, turning peaceful, balanced spiritual gates into chaotic, unpredictable ruptures that could be remotely controlled by him. He was trying to crash the system and merge the worlds on his terms. The Corruptor's final target. Lilas consulted a hidden, ancient map of the community's spiritual anchor points. Her expression was one of grim, absolute certainty. She concluded that the garden attack was a costly, calculated distraction designed to draw traditional spiritual leaders away from the true, vital target. The true target. The graveyard, the sacred domain of the grave guardians, the formidable spirits who manage the boundary of life and death. If the Dark Priest corrupted that central signature, he could unleash an entire, controlled population of the Soulless, a spiritual army fueled by the harvested great good angels of the ancestors, ready to collapse the city into chaos. He's aiming for maximum output, Lilas declared, grabbing a staff carved from ironwood. He's trying to open a permanent, uncontrolled gate big enough for an army. We must intercept him at the resting place. Now. There is no time for further training. Tijan was no longer the skeptical student. His focus was cold, driven by the duty of an engineer facing an existential failure in a critical system. He had finally found his purpose in the spiritual realm, counter-engineering. If he's using frequency resonance to open the gates, He stated with absolute certainty, "I can use my counter frequency, the inverse harmonic of the dissonant chord, to find and neutralize the exact signal of his signature. We can jam his signal before he completes the spiritual uplink and destroys the city's balance." Lilas nodded once, a gesture of fierce approval. "Then we don't walk. We run." They burst out the door into the thick, humid night, the clock ticking against the dark priest's catastrophic plan.